There's a saying that goes, if you can't physically touch something, then you don't really own it. It's simple advice that can apply to so many things, especially the topic of this video, media. You see, long ago, if you wanted to watch a movie, play a video game, or listen to most songs, you needed some kind of physical disc or cartridge to play that media from. This created a really interesting economy where the media had resale value to the consumer who originally purchased it. Used media discs could be sold to secondhand stores that would rent out or sell the disc again to other people. Friends could trade different games and music amongst themselves, which was huge because most people didn't have the cash to buy every single game or every single song that they wanted. So the kind of people that you hung out with had a direct impact on how good your media library was. There wasn't an algorithm created by some trillion-dollar company that affected what movies or music were recommended to everyone. It was all up to whatever friends you had and whatever the video section of a brick and mortar store had. But many of you watching haven't held a physical game, movie, or album in years because the internet has made streaming and downloading media so much easier. At least, that's what the companies making bank off of digital media want you to think. The pros of digital are pretty obvious. If you've ever had a scratched up disc that skipped or refused to play at all, and one of your buddies said that you could buff the scratches out by rubbing toothpaste on it, so you spent the afternoon in your bathroom working over a copy of Modern Warfare 2 with some crest so that you can settle a dispute later in a sniper's only 1v1 on Rust, only to be left with a game that could only be considered mint condition if we're talking about the smell. Having all of your media on someone else's server that you access by logging into some kind of account might be a good way to preserve the integrity of the media because your Spotify account can't get scratched up by your little brother and your Xbox Live account can't snap in half like a copy of Halo 2 under some couch cushions. But nearly all of the cons of physical media boil down to just not taking good care of the discs. Midnight releases could also be a hassle if you hate waiting in lines to get a new game or a new album, but that real-life grass-touching experience is how you use to meet people with similar taste for that media trading economy that I mentioned earlier. You had to win friends to influence your game library. Things are totally different now. PC games haven't been on disc for many years. Steam pretty much wiped that out, and DVD or Blu-ray players rarely come with modern computers. Even most desktops require an external Blu-ray or DVD player for physical media to be played on them, and the same has become true for game consoles. The PlayStation 5 Slim Digital Edition and Xbox Series S both lack integrated disc players, so you have to download your games from Sony or Microsoft or stream media from Netflix or a dozen other streaming services in order to play any media on these devices. Which is crazy to me as someone who owns some of the older consoles. I remember when the PlayStation 3 came out, it was actually one of the cheapest Blu-ray players that you could get at the time. Like a standalone Blu-ray player that didn't let you play games or browse the internet could easily cost as much or more than a PS3 did in 2006. And the PS3 would actually start playing Blu-ray movies faster than the devices whose only job was to play Blu-rays. That was the deciding factor for a lot of kids to get that console upgrade back in the day. You know, back in 06 or 07, kids all over the world were having the same conversation with their parents who would ask, why do you need a PS3 when we just bought you a PlayStation 2, Junior? And then you drop that knowledge on them that the new PlayStation is also a Blu-ray player. So it's not just for games, it's also an upgrade to family movie night. And before you know it, Pops is taking you to Best Buy to get a PlayStation, he's buying some new surround sound speakers, and you're both making a deal not to tell mom. But now everyone downloads their games, they stream their music and movies, and it's presented to people as an upgrade, but you lose all the benefits of physical media. You can't resell your games, music, or movies if they're digital only. You can't even really share streaming accounts anymore because Netflix, Amazon, and all the other services have cracked down on that. These companies know that physical media is dead because they are the ones that killed it. They know that even if you wanted to buy a DVD, it's going to be a struggle for you to find one because most stores have either shrunk down or completely done away with their physical media sections. But the problem gets deeper when you look at the IP trades that are going on between major corporations. So let's say you go onto the PlayStation store and you purchase a movie from there like Terminator 2. You might think that you own that copy of Terminator 2 in a similar way to buying the DVD. Sure, you can't let your buddy borrow the movie like you could if it was on a physical disc, but as long as you have that PlayStation, you'll always have Terminator, right? Wrong. Sony's licensing rights for that film, along with hundreds of others, are expiring. They're no longer able to distribute the films that Studio Canal owns, which means if you bought those films through the PlayStation Network, they're just gone, vanished, poof. And it's not like it's an unavoidable consequence that companies just have to deal with when intellectual property laws are crossed with digital media. For example, Valve, the company behind Steam, has a policy in their developer documentation that retired games, meaning games that are no longer being maintained by their creators or games that the creators just don't want to sell through Steam anymore, have to remain in players' libraries. So the people who have already purchased the game will still be able to download, install, and launch that game that they paid money for. Now, there are some limitations to this because if a game is online only and nobody is running servers for you to play on, then you effectively can no longer play that retired or delisted game. But that would be the same regardless of it being a digital or a physical copy if the developers don't let you run your own gameplay servers. But there's no reason why this same model of letting people who purchased a product keep that product in their libraries, there's no reason why it can't be applied to digital copies of movies, music, and audiobooks, or whatever else. There's virtually no piracy risk from the companies that let the consumers do this because the content is so locked down. Even though the movie is technically downloaded to your PlayStation, it's not like you can copy off an MP4 file of the movie and then throw it up on Mega Upload for all the homies to download. The media consumption apps are even more locked down than the physical disc are when it comes to ripping media off for file trading. And the companies selling the media would still have more control over the market because those secondhand sales, trades, and rentals are non-existent. It's not like the big corporations are missing out on money because they're going to yard sales and buying DVDs. The only way that you could trade digital movies with a friend would be for y'all to swap PlayStations with each other while you're still logged into your respective accounts. So realistically, if both of you really like the Terminator movie, you'll probably both end up buying it through the Sony PlayStation Store, meaning that Sony would still be getting double the money with digital copies, but apparently that's not enough for Sony to write up a better policy for digital content. And another reason I know this is really being fueled by greed and not just bad policies is that Sony is actively trying to kill off physical media through their platform altogether. So starting in 2028, Sony says that physical game disc production for new PlayStation games will be discontinued. So the same company that had an edge 20 years ago by making the PS3 one of the cheapest Blu-ray players that you could buy at the time, and that same company that is going to delete digital copies of movies that people have bought from their accounts, is trying to push us into a future where you can't even play physical media on your console at all. This is why the move to digital media isn't really about convenience, it's about control. If every new game has to go through the PlayStation Store, then Sony doesn't just control the console anymore. They control the storefront, the pricing, the account system, the refunds, the access rules, and the resale market, which gave your physical game copies additional equity, just stops existing altogether. The last part is the one that people don't think about enough. Physical media creates competition after the first release of a game. So if a game comes out at $70, but a bunch of people beat it in a week and then they trade it in for something else, suddenly there are cheaper used copies in mint condition and not just mint by the smell floating around for people to buy. And this gives people who either can't afford a full price game or people who just refuse to pay full price for a game an opportunity to play it. And not only did these companies kill off the whole economy and culture that grew around used video games, but they're keeping the parts of it that actually make them money, like pre-orders. There's really only two reasons to pre-order a video game, which is to get access to exclusive content, and that's just in some cases. You don't always get exclusive content by pre-ordering, but the main reason why in the physical media days was to actually get a copy of the game that you could play on its release. You see, the way things used to go down is the stores like Walmart, Best Buy, and GameStop, they would get maybe a few hundred copies of a game before it was officially released, and then the stores would advertise, probably for a week up to the release, a midnight release of the game. And then you would see, depending on what game came out, I think last time I saw this happening was with Fallout 4, there would be a line of people camping outside of the store hours and hours before the game was going to release to basically reserve their spot in line, because games like Fallout 4 or GTA 5 were guaranteed to sell out because there's only so many physical discs in the store and so much demand from the people who want to play it. But now Rockstar is trying to pull the same kind of shit with GTA 6, but there's no physical disc for the GTA 6 game. But of course, there's all kinds of exclusive content that you only get if you pre-order the game, but you don't really get that much unless you pre-order the Ultimate Edition of the game, which costs $100, by the way. And realistically, the Ultimate Edition of the game is more like a full version of the game, while the Standard Edition is more like a light version. Because if we go through some of these Ultimate Edition features, like the mod shops for customizing vehicles, there's one for off-road vehicles, and it looks like there's another for standard road vehicles, but this is only something you're going to get if you buy the Ultimate Edition of the game and if you pre-order the Ultimate Edition of the game. This has been a feature, customizing vehicles, in Grand Theft Auto games literally since San Andreas. Now granted, San Andreas only lets you do in-depth customizations on a handful of vehicles, but in GTA 5 you could do really detailed customizations and it wasn't locked behind any kind of pre-order paywall. And Rockstar wants to further milk their consumers by selling this GTA Plus crap, which you get a free month of when you pre-order the game. Basically, GTA Plus is a monthly shark card subscription that gives you 500k in in-game currency every month. And there's a handful of other game features, but if GTA 6 Online is anything like GTA 5 Online, that in-game currency is going to be the biggest benefit, unless they decide to also make shit like the Oppressor Mark II that ruined GTA 5 Online another piece of pre-order exclusive content. But getting back to the general point, digital media is designed to screw the consumer. There's no used copy of a game or movie that you can sell later. There's no lending it to your cousin. There's no yard sale bin with some weird forgotten game that turns out to be better than half the stuff released this year. Every purchase goes through the same controlled system. And companies love it because they can change the terms of the system whenever they want. They can remove the content without refunding you. They can change prices. They can bundle stuff into subscriptions. They can inject ads into your game and then expect you to pay for a more premium version that doesn't have the ads. And the problem isn't just with Sony or Rockstar. Many more companies collaborated on this content distribution shift because digital makes them more money. And I get why regular people accepted this. Streaming movies and downloading games is easy, assuming that you have a good internet connection. If you're rural, well, you know, the media companies have been telling you to screw yourself for years now, but convenience that the city slickers are claiming still has a cost. And the cost is that your media library now depends on a chain of things that you have no control over. Your account has to work, the store has to stay open, the company has to keep the license for the product that you bought years ago, and your device still has to be approved. That means that your purchase isn't really finished once you swipe your card and you're charged for the product. It depends on a stack of permissions, and if one layer breaks, either by accident or by you breaking the company's rules, your transaction is effectively nullified without you getting a refund. This is why the phrase, if buying isn't owning, piracy isn't stealing, has caught on so much. Because in most digital stores, what you're really buying is a license to access the thing under a pile of terms that nobody reads because the terms are written by a law firm whose lawyers have barely ever seen the sunlight, despite their hats being so small and not providing a lot of shade. And sure, physical media has DRM2, there's region locks and copy protection on disk. We've all seen that kind of nonsense before. But even with all of that, a disk still gave you some leverage. It gave you a copy outside of the company's account system. It gave you something that could sit on a shelf for 20 years and would still work if you had the hardware to play it or if one day you feel like video games just aren't for you anymore, or maybe you decide to swap from being a dirty console peasant to join the PC gaming master race, you could trade in those games to get some money to put towards your next hobby. You had equity in your games. And for movies, there's another issue that people forget until they actually see side by side a Blu-ray version of a movie and a streamed version of it. A good 4K Blu-ray can look and sound way better than that same movie on a streaming service because the disc has room for more data. Streaming has to squeeze the content and the audio down so that it can get to millions of people over different internet connections. And that's why certain things like dark scenes on streaming can look like somebody smeared Vaseline on a Minecraft texture pack. The resolution of the movie might say 4K, but it's at a lower bitrate when you stream it. A movie can have the same number of pixels and still look worse because the stream is starving for data. And this gets even worse when a service changes its app or changes its pricing or loses the movie that you wanted to watch. I mean, streaming feels like it's this infinite library until you actually search for one specific thing, and then suddenly the infinite library feels like a gas station DVD rack, except you have to pay every month for it, even though what you want isn't there. And this is where preservation becomes more than just some collector hobby. If old games, old movies, old shows, and old music only exist inside of a corporate server, then culture starts depending on their quarterly earning reports. That's a bad storage format. History should not need a login and should not need more profits quarter after quarter in order to exist. The Video Game History Foundation found that most classic games are not in release anymore. This means that a huge chunk of gaming history is just not available through normal legal channels. And this is why physical media isn't just about owning stuff or getting better quality on the Breaking Bad series. It's about keeping options alive. Sure, it might not be legal to rip data off a disk or a cartridge because some executive is worried that it will prevent him from being able to buy another yacht, but 100 years from now, after you and that executive end up in the same dirt despite having vastly different net worths in life, historians will have the collectors of physical media and the pirates that downloaded it to their hard drives to thank for preserving a piece of culture. Now, unfortunately, we've already gone too far down the path to have any kind of true return to the culture of physical media, so what can you actually do about it? Well, if there's media that you care about, make sure that you own it. Make sure you own a physical copy of it. Buy the Blu-ray, buy the CD, buy the DRM-free version. Don't assume that a game will stay playable or a movie watchable just because it's sitting in your account, which gives you access to a corporate server somewhere. And when a company sells access, they should call it access. If they want to rent us media forever, then fine. Just say that that is what you're doing. Don't put a buy button on the screen, charge ownership prices, and then hide behind licensing term when that thing disappears. Honestly, this kind of crap should be covered by consumer protection laws. But the death of physical media isn't really about discs, it's about the death of control. The disc was just the part that you could hold in your hand. What mattered was everything attached to it: resale, lending, preservation, offline access, and the simple idea that when you bought something, the company didn't get to keep a leash on it forever. So yeah, streaming is easier, downloads are easier, digital libraries are easier, but easy doesn't always mean better. It's control dressed up as convenience. If you enjoyed this video, please like and share it to hack the algorithm, and check out my online store, based.win, where you can buy my awesome merch or accessories for your phone and laptop. 10% store-wide discount when you pay with Monero XMR at checkout. Have a great rest of your day.